I'll go on to approval of the agenda. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Moved by Nancy, seconded by Robert.
I'll second.
All in favor? Actually, I shouldn't have done that so quickly. I do have a couple of additions. Well, the one is just a question. We don't seem to have had the newsletter from CHO. We haven't had one since last year. I don't think. I can't remember. Would you? Yeah, it may have come in and be found. Yeah. And I'd like to put on an item under new business. I guess that's 8, isn't it? Yeah. No. Reports business. I guess it can go on the it'd be 7.3. I'd like to discuss 141 Main Street, which is a nice little Victorian house, and it's just changed hands. So I would like to have a short discussion on whether we could approach, should approach or whatever, the owners, the new owners. Main Street, yeah. Help if I put my glasses on. Yeah, under item 8, which is previous agenda placking, we did have a discussion at one point about having a plaque in Smithfield. And Nancy and I have had a little bit of interaction on that. So if we could add that, certainly this. So I'll again, with those changes, I would again call for approval of the agenda. All in favor? That's carried. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof? Seeing none, we move on to adoption of the minutes of August the 9th. And the motion is that the Heritage Advisory Committee approve the minutes from the August 9th, 2021 meeting as presented or amended. Any comment? Those in, sorry. No. Yeah. Okay, so sorry. I'm not clear what you're saying, sorry. Oh. You're listed as present and you weren't here? He was here. Yeah, sorry, going forward. Oh, okay. Oh, okay. So I guess we should pass it. We pass a motion to change the minutes. Yeah. Okay. So you're moving. Nancy, you're seconded. All those in favor? Thank you. That's carried. What in the previous minutes? Okay. Right, okay. So we'll move to make those changes to the minutes. So you'll move in that, Robert, and somebody second. Okay, Nancy seconded. All in favor? That's carried. So the first delegation is Lindsay, Reid of Branch Architecture regarding Heritage Conservation District, Charette.
Hello, thank you, everyone. I will let you know that I'm not hearing anything from the council chambers. So I don't know if anyone else is having that issue. Liz is shaking her head. I had hoped that this would be a little more interactive. But I guess what I'll do is I've put together a couple slides that we can speak to. So I'm here today because I was contacted by staff because there's an interest in pursuing a heritage conservation district, I understand, in Brighton. And before and this falls, I believe, from the mature neighborhood study that was done looking at the larger area of Brighton, and there was a recommendation for the main street to do an HCD. So in speaking with Paul, one of the things we were thinking about before doing, an RFP for the actual HCD study was to do a bit of a walk around Charette with the Heritage Committee so that we could have a better understanding of what the boundary of the HCD study may look like, and have an understanding of what the assets and the integrity of the area was. The purpose of this is, a heritage district study is a lovely thing once you have it up and running, and I'm sure Peter and Liz will kind of nod to this, but it is something that takes a couple years. It has several phases and requires approval from council. And sometimes if there are kind of different things that you want to protect, or if there's just very specific buildings or more wider kind of vision heritage aspects, they can be protected either through listings, designations, or kind of amendments to the OP and such. So we thought that this would be a good opportunity to have a kind of warts and all conversation about what the different heritage tools are that we could use for the main street. So in terms of what we were talking about for the actual kind of walk around Charette, I just have a couple slides to give people a kind of flavor of what that may look like. Is it okay, Clerk, if I share my screen?
Yes, you can share.
Okay, thank you. Oh, where are we?
I also have them loaded up on our screen if you'd want me to share. Oh, there you go.
Is it? Is that kind of showing okay for people? I don't know.
That looks great.
Does it? Okay.
Yep.
So I can't see it here. So Just to start, there are these wonderful photos that were taken in the 1920s all across Ontario of aerial views. And so I was able to find one of kind of downtown Brighton. It's a little blurry, but it shows at that point in time kind of how intact things were. Sorry, I am having trouble. Can I get you guys to share the screen?
Yep, no problem.
I'm sorry about that.
There you go. Can you see that?
No.
No? Okay, hold on a second.
You think after a year we'd all have this down pat, but
Yeah.
unfortunately, sometimes it takes a couple tries.
Okay, how about that? Can you guys see that in the Zoom world? Maybe not.
Oh, there we go.
Okay.
Perfect. So just advancing to the second slide. So this is a map view from the Mature Neighborhoods study that was done that staff provided me with. And so one of the things I was hoping to do today is have a little more feedback from the Heritage Committee about where they were envisioning the study area to go from. Reading through the Mature Neighborhood study, it looks like what's proposed in it is a Main Street study that basically goes from Prince or Ontario on the west side of town and goes all the way to kind of Prince Edward. So what I'm seeing there is it encapsulates around Prince Edward and Main Street, a more kind of commercial block area with the public park in the center and a historic kind of residential landscape. So one of the things I'd like to do is walk through with members of the committee and staff, get a clear understanding of where they see those boundaries and the key assets are. So one thing I've done prepared for today, I've just pulled up a couple of the sample maps that we also look at when we're starting on a heritage district study. So if we can go to the next slide. This is a map of Brighton, kind of a snapshot in 1878. So these are the atlas maps that were done across Ontario, and they're very helpful because they show the street forms that have been set up at that point in time, which ones are dominant, the lot subdivision that's been happening, and they often include some kind of built form. So we can see here the built form, particular buildings along Main Street. We can see the waterways coming through, the railway, and the street form and such. So the next maps that we have, oh, we skipped over one. Yeah, are the fire insurance plans. And I found for Brighton, there's one from 1911 and 1926 that I was able to find. And again, these tell us a lot about the street framework, the built form, and also they help us understand how the built form has kind of changed over time. And now this is only kind of 15 years between one and the next. But we can see these side by side. A funny thing is when they used to do these Godes Atlas maps, it was a lot of work to actually print them up again and again. So they would actually kind of do sticky overlays. So on the one on the right, you can see very specifically the changes from one to the next because they just kind of overlaid and stuck them on top. But in terms of doing a heritage conservation district, these are helpful because they tell us what buildings were there at that point in time and how they may have grown and changed through that period. So the following two slides are just some examples of the kind of the cultural mapping that we may do as part of this. So the one that I have here is some work that I'm doing on with Bray Heritage in Wellington in Prince Edward County. So this was a map with us kind of playing with what the study area boundary looked like with the red line, mapping out the key aspects of the town layout, green areas, heritage buildings, and also kind of civic centers. So part of the mapping that we would do would be looking at kind of beyond the architecture itself and looking at what makes Brighton unique in terms of its streetscape and the character of place. And then the second type of mapping that we often do for this is looking at the integrity of the individual properties. So for this, we did a walk around survey where we looked at each property on its own merit, both in terms of its kind of architectural value and historical value. And we're mapping out heritage contributing properties versus what we said were non-contributing properties. So contributing properties are ones that add to the sense of place for the area that we're studying, whereas ones that are non-contributing are ones where we're imagining that there's opportunity for change and enhancement for the overall district. So I do have additional slides, but kind of given our timing and that we're on YouTube, we don't necessarily need to go into them. They talk more about kind of heritage districts as a whole. But in terms of what we're planning for our charrette, these were kind of what we were thinking about.
Did you want me to stop sharing then, Lindsay?
Sure. I'm happy to kind of answer questions that people have.
Hi, Robert Granger.
Hi, Robert.
After the mature neighborhood study was done, we had a lot of community participation where we have basically a group of outlying communities that are as historic as the downtown core here, like Smithfield, Codrington, and Hilton, and also Gosport. And that we're wondering, you might want to take a look at that and how the outlying communities actually complemented the historic Main Street, because they are basically commercial hubs for the whole municipality. So
wonderful.
Yeah.
And is this something that's caught in your OP?
Through the chair, no, Lindsay, it's not currently reflected in the official plan that I recall. The mature neighborhood study was really just confined to the area that you had identified and didn't extend into the areas of Smithfield and Gosport, for example.
Okay, wonderful.
Well, we have listed properties and a few designated properties in the area that we're thinking, or that I'm thinking about anyway. So how would that be different, designating the district versus what we're already doing?
Okay, so the Ontario Heritage Act allows for properties to be protected in multiple ways. So it is possible for a property to be have both an individual designation as well as a Part 4 designation. And it just means that if there's an application coming forward for a heritage permit for the property, that there's more information on hand to inform the decisions that are made about it. On one of those maps that I had brought up, the first one of the cultural mapping, what we often do is kind of layer over the existing heritage assets as a first layer to understand kind of what is already protected. But basically, in the case of a listed heritage property, if it was included with an HCD, it would benefit a lot in terms of the level of heritage protection that is offered. A listed heritage property is almost like what I call is there's a little bit of a post-it on that property, so that if there's a demolition application, it gives the municipality time to review it for designation. Whereas if it's part of a district, one of the main things of district is kind of demolition control. So we can kind of protect what's integral to the place, and so it stays over time while allowing for new change and growth to happen.
Presumably, it would also give an opportunity to approach owners about when they want to make changes, to do so in a sympathetic kind of way, because, you know, the story we're selling, right, is that this is a very attractive historic area, and everybody who lives in it and owns property in it stands to benefit from that if it's put across the right kind of way, not being police and making things happen, but explaining to property owners or how the overall property values increase if it's in a cohesive area like that.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, heritage districts bring forward a lot of advantages. One of them being, you know, what we talked about is the retention of historic buildings and historic streetscapes in perpetuity under the designation. They also encourage kind of compatible new additions and alterations. So for instance, if there's a parking lot and an intact Main Street location, it means that any new infill happening there needs to be visually compatible with the streetscape that's already there. It allows for streetscape improvements that may be kind of more historically in keeping with that place. So a lot of these older small towns, for instance, they used to have beautiful alleys of trees that have been lost to hydro lines and such. So often when municipalities are going through those streetscape improvements now, we're able to weave in a more pedestrian friendly and kind of romantic streetscape with trees and benches and you know, beautiful pavers and such. Often HCDs are used as a way to promote economic development. You'll often see them promoted by municipalities as cultural tourism destinations. So people will come and have a visit and picnic in the park and ice cream and kind of enjoy the place for its beautiful setting. And I think what you've touched on as well in your comments is there have been studies about real estate values in heritage districts in comparison to adjacent neighborhoods across Ontario. And generally they find that real estate values in heritage districts tend to be maintained or increase income in a more favorable way in comparison to their neighbors. And a lot of that is because it's very predictable what your neighborhood is going to look like. And so for a lot of buyers, that has a lot of value to it. So those are the kind of the key benefits of heritage districts. I mean, we've we've had a lot of success, I think, with the one in Picton. I do have a slide that kind of shows some of the nice kind of wins we've had in Picton. We have the armory that's been redesigned, both the building as well as a front space for the public. We've had lots of storefront improvements that have been done. And even there's been a few kind of residential outliers where we've seen them restored. So over the course of about, I think it's about 6 or 7 years that the district's been in place, we've seen a lot of benefits come from it.
Through the chair to Lindsay, thanks for being here. That's great presentation. One of the things I was hoping to hear your views on, perhaps not now, but later after you do your walkabout and whatnot, is you mentioned about how a heritage conservation district comes with it further review process and permitting and more of a detailed framework in which we evaluate changes to buildings and properties. So I was hoping also to get some context or some direction from you at some point regarding the cost versus the benefits, to get some sense of direction regarding different options. Because I do recall some of the recommendations that you made to us in Prince Edward County at the time as to what phases of an HCD we're looking at. You suggested not some areas in favor of others and things like that. So just based on what the HCD in, say, phase 2 of Picton was really going to give us in comparison to doing one in Wellington, for example. So that kind of broader thinking would be also a benefit.
Yeah, once we're able to kind of do a walk around and I can speak to the stakeholders at the walk around and get a better sense of where priorities are, I'd be happy to provide further comment on that.
Through the chair, just want to make sure we're on the same page, just in case. Are committee members, is it the intention of the walk around for committee members to be present? Or is that staff and the branch architecture team?
We haven't really discussed that too much in detail. We haven't got that far, but I'm thinking it might be useful to have a committee member or two. And if staff can come along as well, then that would be great. But I think for continuity purpose, it would be good to have a staff member and a committee member, if Lindsay would so have us.
I'd be happy to have as many Heritage Committee members as we can coordinate to be there. I mean, I live in Prince Edward County, so I have a very specific lens of which kind of I see my community, and people that live in Brighton and have businesses in Brighton are going to have a unique lens of what they want for their community. So in order to have the best recommendations to the municipality, it would be, I'm happy to have more people there rather than less.
Well, I would certainly agree with that. Yeah. Any other comments from?
I have a bit of time if you've got a scheduling date, and I work in town, so I can participate too. I'd like to see an outsider's opinion sort of on what you find fascinating about Brighton. So, got at least one member from the committee.
Wonderful.
Yeah, okay, well, and I think if it can be accommodated, maybe you could comment on that. I'd like to see all of the committee members. I mean, obviously, if the date and time may not be convenient for everybody, but I think this is a really critical exercise in terms of going forward as a committee.
So just a little one piece about that is we would have to make a motion in this meeting to make that a working group, because if you were to all be present, it would be counted as a committee meeting. So then I would have to actually take minutes.
Okay.
So we'll just have to maybe we'll add that as a motion for now without a date in mind, but just that the committee can participate as a working group in this walk around.
Well, I'd move that, and second, Nancy. All in favor?
Ron's saying yes too.
Ron's saying yes. Yeah. Okay. Thanks. That's good. Well, I'd like to, on behalf of the committee, I'd like to thank you very much for your time, and it's been a pleasure having you sort of at the meeting.
Well, I look forward to meeting hopefully all of you in person sometime very soon. It's the perfect time of year to be doing a walkabout together.
Sure enough, yes. Thank you again.
Thanks.
So that's our first delegation. We have another, this driver regarding insurance and heritage properties. I guess you're going to tee that up.
I think you can take it away, Liz, if you're.
Oh, okay. So you actually have here today 2 members of the Prince Edward Heritage Committee to talk about insurance for heritage properties, myself and Peter Lockyer. And Peter is the vice chair of PHAC. He was the chair in the term before. And both Peter and I are on our second term of PHAC. And I think I just want to say how interesting it is to have had the HCD presentation go before us, because Peter and I, in our first term, I believe we were instituting, actually starting to live with and work with the Picton Main Street Heritage Conservation District plan. So these are great steps that you're taking, and we're going to talk about the insurance issue exactly the same, a learning experience. You know, when we hit a roadblock with insurance for heritage properties. Peter, I think we had hoped, for example, to just ask you, first of all, before we go on, if we could just understand what issues you've had in your municipality with insurance for heritage properties, and that might inform some of our comments.
We had a new buyer for a designated property. She had great difficulty getting insurance for the house. So she put it out there in the world of Facebook, which of course it was awful because all kinds of misinformation came out. And I believe eventually she did get insurance for the property, but I haven't heard back from her. That's the unfortunate part of this, is there isn't a follow-up. So I'm not sure how that all worked out, but as far as I can tell, everything worked out. So yeah, that's probably an issue. That's getting out, that insurance companies. I did talk to the Architectural Conservancy too, and they said it seems to be a real problem.
Right. Okay, that's a great start. So what I'm going to suggest is that I'll just first say what caused the chill on designations in Prince Edward County, and then Peter can maybe tell you some of the steps that we took and how long it took to resolve. And then I think it would be important for me to just describe some of the issues that we addressed in our document and where we are now. So does that sound good, Peter, as a structure?
Well, I think that you're actually, Liz is the expert. You have to know that she's the policy person in the group. I'm more of the communications person, but I would say that this is all part and parcel of a heritage district and establishing one. And you kind of have to go into it with a bundle of arrows in your quiver. It's not just one thing, it's thinking through many things. So for the longest time, when we started to implement this, it's one thing to establish it, but it's another to implement it. There would seem to me at least, that there was a perpetual boiling pot of tar along the street, just ready to sort of grab us and dip us into the fire. It's not without controversy. So I would say Lindsay would be appropriate to also talk about, okay, if we go ahead with this, what are some pitfalls learned from the Picton experience? I would certainly say you need to identify contentious issues, one of which is insurance. The other thing is the old argument about public and private ownership of properties. People feeling, well, wait a minute, I own the building, not the community. And so I have my rights, and that we could go on and on about the many discussions we had about that. And the myths that were just mentioned, there's all kinds of misinformation. So I think when you do this, you want to have a strong public education program and lots of community consultation, and identify the issues and be prepared to have materials to say myth, fact. So just to get down to the matter of insurance, that was immediately an issue that came up. It persists. It's now, 7 or 8 years later. We just had an application for someone to deregister from designation. And one of their issues was, well, the higher cost of insurance, which is actually not the case anymore. So there were a bunch of conditions that led us to say, let's identify problems and let's be solution oriented. We will work with property owners, we will work with the community, we will work with our local government to be solution oriented. So those were the occasions that sort of contrived that we said, okay, let's go forward. I heard lots of deputations about, we were establishing the Heritage Police, and unfortunately some communities, I think, have ended up that way. Our view is you have to work with the community and be creative in the solutions. So this issue came up quite often. And the question is, what do you do about it? We were lucky in our community because, like in your community, people who are insurance brokers or people that have connections or knowledge. We were lucky to have one company who they own a historic building in the downtown. They're very interested in heritage as an issue, and they volunteered to help us contact the other companies in town to start to say, we want to develop a policy. We want the input of and partnership of insurance agents. You're the people dealing with this issue day in, day out. You're the people with the expertise. Can we have your input to fashion a document? So it's really your document, not just our document. And it took a while, probably, what would you say, 18 months, maybe almost close to 2 years, to get responses and have those discussions. But we have turned the corner, and Liz, mostly Liz, not too much Peter, developed a very robust document that I think is very detailed, but very moderate as well. It soothes concerns looking at the Ontario Heritage Act, the Prince Edward Heritage Conservation District Plan, and regular practices within the insurance industry to balance those all things out so that we have happy insurance brokers in our community, and we have a ready document to give to people who still say, oh, well, I can't maintain my heritage designation because the cost of insurance is too high. So Liz, I'm going to let you take it through specifics.
Great. So I was looking at the date of the document, current at November 2020, and I just want you to know that it is still current. Nothing has changed with respect to provincial heritage guidelines or anything. I believe that you can use this document. It is not exclusive to Prince Edward County. And indeed, you can advise your property owners of heritage buildings listed or designated, or hopefully the properties that will come under a future HCD. Your people can turn to our insurance, our one insurance company in Prince Edward County, and our brokers, right? Anybody can go for insurance anywhere. It doesn't have to be Brighton Insurance. But the thing about the county is, because we do have Bay of Quinte Mutual, many people, including especially rural properties, are insured with our local company. And for their own particular reasons, when I have an 1860 farmhouse and farm property, which has been insured by Bay of Quinte Mutual for decades, for all I know, 100 years. Anyway, I was told, oh, we're not going to renew your insurance. And then other people with designated properties were told they would not have their insurance renewed. So on an individual level, this was quite disturbing, because we wanted to stick with our local insurer. But as Peter said, we were lucky that there were brokers in town who could find insurance for heritage properties elsewhere. So I know people, when they were refused by Bay of Quinte Mutual, they went through these other brokers to other companies. But the good news is that through this cooperative and collaborative process that Peter helped to facilitate, Bay of Quinte Mutual now has a package for heritage properties. So they told me when we went in to talk about, well, can't you renew our insurance? And they said, well, look, we're afraid not about absolute destruction, because the Ontario Heritage Act and the Ministry of Heritage is very clear that if there's total destruction of a heritage property, there's no obligation to rebuild it. What the insurance company was concerned about was partial destruction. And when the fellow at Bay of Quinte said to me straight out, well, Liz, what about partial? I, as a member of PHAC, wasn't actually sure what to say to him. I wasn't really sure. So that prompted, well, Peter said we had the conversations with our local insurance industry, but it also prompted an examination of what should our Heritage Committee's response be in the case of partial damage to a designated property. And we decided to put into our document examples. These are theoretical examples of, what would happen if there was a fire that gutted the second floor of a designated property? What would happen if a tree fell on a roof where the profile of the roof was a heritage attribute? All this kind of thing. So the owners would come, they want to repair the damage. What should PHAC's response be? So the good thing about this document is it sets it out in detail for the insurance industry, so that they have confidence that our Heritage Committee won't be like, as Peter said, like heritage police, you're trying to wield a stick, but a committee which has an understanding of what are we allowed to ask, right? What should we recommend? How can we work with the owner to come up with a solution that's efficient, cost-effective, and also meets the needs of the insurance industry? So you can't, we as a committee cannot influence whether a company will insure a heritage property. We cannot influence what an insurance company will charge for the insurance, but we can establish a kind of guidelines for how we would approach permit applications that involve an insurance claim. And and we had to pull apart designated properties and properties within the Heritage Conservation District because different things come into play in terms of what must be protected. So this is all in there, and I really encourage each of you to read through the document, to share those insurance contacts with anybody who needs insurance for heritage property. I have to say that although it really stopped us in our tracks, because we could not in all conscience go out and persuade property owners in Prince Edward County to designate the properties if our local insurance company was refusing to insure them. But now we have solutions. We have people that you can go to. And I want to just say one last thing, which is for our heritage property, because of course there's many different forms of insurance. That is so complicated, but we have what's called a functional, let me just get the exact name, a functional rebuilding endorsement. And what that means is that we, the owner of a heritage property, agree with our insurance company that we would agree to, in the case of damage, common materials and methods, right? So they know that if something happens, we're not going to go and say, well, we want a hand-carved newel post, or, you've got to provide this kind of window or that kind of heritage brick, because but we understand, and we got reassurance from them that if at the point of damage, we want to pay for the heritage bricks or the hand-carved newel post, we may do that. We may pay extra to kind of do a real beautiful restoration of the damage. So I encourage you to take a look at the document. Feel free, I think, your committee could consider whether you would like to adopt the document as your policy. There's no reason that you shouldn't. And to be reassured that whenever you're going out to approach people for designation, that they certainly can turn to the company, the brokers, and the insurance company listed in our document. And I'm happy to take any questions.
Any questions? No? Well, on behalf of the committee, well, I'm sure the committee will agree that we really very much appreciate your time and trouble, both of you. And it's been, from my personal point of view, it's been an education and very useful, and will help our committee very much in the future, I think. Thank you.
Could I just add one more thing? And we could send something to Paul about this, but when you start the Heritage District, there are a whole bunch of other issues arise. This was one, and the Heritage Insurance was just showstopper for us trying to get designations going through. But the other things is, I think it's helpful if you have an incentive program. So we started a $100,000 annual grant program that is for those people who are owners of designated properties or heritage properties within the Heritage District. And that has been very successful. It's small grants, but we always top up the fund. So it's always at 100,000 that we would have every year to spend. And it's really, not many people know about it, and we're still trying to promote it, but it has been something where we're actually assisting people to carry out the work that we would like them to undertake. I think it's a terrific mistake if you say to people, you ought to fix up your building because I like to look at it. You have to be in there to say, if you designate, you get this program. We'd like to explore tax incentives as well. We're not there yet, but we're looking at it. we do have annual heritage awards, and a bunch of other projects that are all supportive of heritage, because you need to put some really tangible, concrete, practical incentives on the table as you start to do this, because there'll be lots of people that come up with misinformation or various reasons why you shouldn't do this. The old private property rights versus the public good will come up. And I just think you have to have a bundle of tools that you can work with. And then the second thing is to really have an extensive public education program around that, community meetings, materials on a website, print materials that come in a package when people walk in to explore about this. We are still working at that. We're under capacity and we've got lots of jobs to take, but if in doing again, and I would hope that Lindsay would also be an expert on that, it's looking back at it, it was a great thing to do. It took a lot of effort, but we could have done it better. So we learned some lessons out of that, and I'd be happy to participate in your endeavor to just sort of smooth some of these things out that we just didn't realize at the time.
Well, we really appreciate that offer. And I think we'll be taking you up on that at some point. Thank you again. So,
Thank you, Peter and Liz. It's been great.
sorry.
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah, right.
Thanks, Paul.
bye.
And at this point, I'd really like to thank Paul for arranging that whole thing. And it's very useful and very topical, obviously. Thank you. So we move on to correspondence. I don't think we have any. And now we move on to reports and business and Government Park Improvement Initiative discussion with Director of Parks and Rec.
Yep, so we've got Jim Miller on the on Zoom there.
Okay, Jim.
Afternoon.
Good afternoon, Jim. So could you tell us exactly what's being proposed? Or is that sort of
It's, well, I've had correspondence back and forth with a neighborhood lady who has a property owner close by the park. And she's suggesting that we do some modifications to that park area, beautify it, I guess would be the best word. And she thought it would be a good idea to have some plaques, historical plaques or whatnot, basically that would show the history of that area, whether it's that property proper or, you know, the area around it. So, you know, she did give me a bit of a sketch, and she's looking at, you know, on the, this would be the east side of that park, or the right-hand side if you're looking towards the water. You know, 2 or 3 different historical plaques that people could walk up to and have a look at. I know there's one there now. It's not in the greatest of shape. A lot of them around town aren't. They were done years ago in another initiative. But that's basically what her thought was. I said I would bring it along to, you know, a group that did that kind of thing. I don't know if this is the group needs to go to, or who looks after that kind of historical, you know, items for the town.
Mhm. Okay, so this is an ongoing discussion with this person, or, and, you know, as I understand it, it was a two-part thing. One was how the signage there looks at the moment and whether it's appropriate for a municipal facility. And the other one was some more specific suggestions about having historic plaques all down one side. Does that fit
Yeah.
in your understanding? Yeah.
That would be my understanding, something like that, so people could actually go there and have a look and you know, as they walk down towards the dock, they could get a better understanding of the area. And you know, and what it means to the history of Brighton. I do have some money in next year's budget for that park. So, you know, depending on how much it would cost to get a sign and get a base in place, you know, I'd be willing to work with another group.
Yeah.
That's
Well, in rough figures, those plaques come in at about $1,500.
A piece.
If we're talking 4 of them, that's $6,000.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that, and plus installation, which normally the municipality does. But
Oh yeah, that we would install them.
yeah.
So that's the plaque and the base, Dave?
No, well, my experience goes back quite a few years, like 3, 4. at
Right.
least. So it could be up there now.
Yeah. Well, I remember getting them,
Yeah.
all of them, so.
Park. So that's the one thing is, but I think the other main point that the same lady made to me was that the existing plaque there is in a it's been scratched and so on, and it's a question of whether it could be improved, like recoated or something, or whether we need to look at replacement. I think
Well, the other plaques that are in all the other parks, I believe there's one in Memorial Park. Not sure if there's one at Rose Ellery, one at Spring Valley.
Yeah.
I know a few of those are really, in fact, the one at Memorial Park is ripped. It's not in good shape at all. You could probably have to replace probably 2 or 3 of them. They're beyond repair.
okay.
Hi, Jim. I'm just wondering, the government dock position lands in itself. Dave was mentioning the other day about there having been quite a bit of history with that particular site. So in those areas that have more of a detailed or rich history, I'm just wondering if a plaque may not be sufficient if you want to have more of an interpretive kiosk or interpretive stand that you see in some of the areas of notable historical significance. That's
Yeah, even a stand might work. Like,
yeah, so it's a bit of a
Yeah,
question for the
demolish.
committee, if they feel something like that would be appropriate. You know, usually they have 4 sides. Each panel has a bit of a history of the site or the area,
Yeah.
and so it's more of an educational
Yeah.
little facility. You know, it's usually 4 seats, and then behind each seat is a panel with a bit of description on it as to the history of the site, and that's about it. If the area is not prone to a lot of vandalism, then maybe that would be something that's feasible, but only if the committee feels that if the site's significant enough to warrant that.
Yeah. Well, one of the problems is that's it's not a busy place, particularly in the winter. It's busy in the summer. I happen to live up the road from it. So there's a great deal of opportunity for vandalism. So if there was a proposition to do something a little more intricate, like a sort of information kiosk kind of thing, and particularly if it had like electronic gear in there or something like that, I think you need to make it mobile so you can take it out in the wintertime. And I think one of the things I've seen in some jurisdictions is that you have, what you get is a, I don't know what they call these things, but you have the possibility of using a cell phone to go to a website or information point, and you get all the photographs, everything, just coming at you over your cell phone. That would seem to me to be a much more appropriate way to do it. I mean, as far as I know, you know, I've seen places where you can do that, just
The QR code.
QR code, right. So some people are telling me that QR codes are dead and there are other ways of doing it. So I don't know. But to me, like on some of those, the newer plaques that we've put in, we've put QR codes on. So people who get interested in the particular item, they can use their cell phone, and they used to be able to get right on the Brighton website and get the information that way. Now, I think things have changed. People tell me that those QR codes don't work anymore. So probably the information that was put in is no longer appropriate because the municipal website has changed. So
Another alternative might be a comparable sign like the one we have at Memorial Park, where we have the community map on, double-sided. It's good, 6 square feet of information could be posted up on both sides. There's no power to it. If it needed some light, you could put a solar panel and make it just, you could probably get half of the information that's in Brighton Digital Archive on one side. So that might be an option if that map and stand were an affordable version to go, and it's a visual attractor for people to look for something. They're going to see a large display sign.
Through the chair to the committee, for Jim's purpose, would this particular site, the dock, would it warrant more detailed historical information because of its history, or is a plaque sufficient?
I like the idea, of having that right there as a display, like you're saying, with the size of what we have at Memorial Park. You could probably put, 3-4 picture boards inside that, which could put, a bit of the historical information in it, as opposed to putting 2 or 3 different things along the side. You might be able to just do one.
Yeah.
A nice looking sign border, even if we could put something around it, a covering, just to, make it blend in.
yeah. Well, I know that we have going to have a joint meeting with the archives committee. So I'm thinking that we'll put that on the agenda for that meeting.
Yeah, and I mean, it's early enough now. If you could get even a budget amount, we can work with that.
Yeah, I just don't think we should. And one thing we maybe should look into, whether it's your end or our end, is a replacement for the existing plaque, because it is a bit scratched up. It doesn't reflect, I mean, that's been there well over 20 years, I think. So, basically as a maintenance item, whoever did that plaque, there must be documentation somewhere that could be just done the same way. Somebody put a bit of thought into it, On the other hand, I'm beginning to think the right way to approach this is to talk to the digital archives and see if we can come up with a way forward for really this type of thing of putting historical information out there. I mean, we of necessity have to concentrate on protection of our heritage buildings, but it's probably very appropriate to partner with other committees and other members, other municipal departments to see if we can, help out with putting this kind of tourist information, basically, is what it is. And
Okay.
it's
Yeah, it makes sense. So what's the next step? Should I talk to them, digital archives, or where are you going to?
Well, we're in the process of setting up a working group meeting.
Oh.
With them. And it may be appropriate for you to come along.
Sure. Yeah, just let me know.
Okay.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Is the rest of the committee all okay with all that?
Yeah.
See a show of hands. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
All right.
Thanks for coming, Jim.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Okay. So 7.1. So should we pass a resolution to bring that up on the
Sure, yeah. I
the joint meeting?
I just wrote just exactly that, just that the committee discussed the initiative further at the HAC BDA joint meeting.
Excellent. Okay. Thanks. So that's 7.1 taken care of. So we're moving on to 7.2. That the committee recommend council maintain the 2021 Heritage Advisory Committee budget line items with a 0% increase. Get somebody to move that. Thank you, Nancy. All in favor? Carried.
Mr. Chairman, I guess it's carried, and I think we've been well underneath our budget in previous years. But if we end up having something more in terms of plaques or enhanced landscape marks, I think it's been coming out of that miscellaneous expense. And it may not be enough. We just heard about a $6,000 plus improvement on the government dock land. So I'm not familiar with historically where the money comes from for those, if they're come out of the parks or from this, but I think I'm hoping it's from parks based on our conversation with Jim just now, but we may have to revisit that, the heritage budget at a subsequent meeting.
Yeah.
The last plaque for Canadian Canners was on the 2020 budget as a line item for plaques. So I'm thinking if it's going to be a working group, we might be contributing a portion like digital archives and parks and the works department. So we might be able to spread it over a couple departments and a couple committees for future costs. for the government docks. That might be an example where we can do a cooperative project and use that as a pattern for the future. Where we're spreading the cost over a couple committees, over a couple departments.
I can speak to that a little bit, Dave, if you
Okay.
want. Just I think there probably will need to be a clear note, like there is a separation here between this committee being budgeted for the Ontario Heritage Act designations, and and then those other plaques, is my understanding that those were never initiated by this committee in the first place, like the ones in the parks, right? Because they're not necessarily designated.
Well, there's two sets of plaques. One was done for I think it was the millennial, but anyway, 20 odd years ago. And there was fundraising done for those throughout community. It wasn't just the municipality that paid for it. And that includes the one at the government dock. Be that as it may, the committee has put in place a number of plaques to commemorate, just strictly commemorate particular buildings or historic sites that wouldn't otherwise be recorded or protected and recorded. So it's those latter ones that we've been in the habit of having an annual budget amount to pay for one or two of that type of plaque. And the one that just came up, the one that we're looking to install.
Canadian Canners.
Yeah,
On
Canadian.
Richardson.
Yeah, right. That's the latest in those. So I'm kind of reluctant, I guess, to see us focusing on that kind of it's more related to publicity, really, and publicizing Brighton's unique history, etc., etc. Whereas, we mustn't lose sight of the fact that we're in the business of protecting our heritage assets. So I don't know. I'd like to have comments from other members of the committee.
Hearing that for the first time that we may have to replace up to a half a dozen signs, probably the older ones, and Memorial Park. And we're also talking about the Heritage District as another big project where we might have to be writing a check per se for some more information, printing, public information documents and that. We might need to increase the budget or go to the council halfway through the budget year and ask for a future grant or something like that to cover these, a one-time grant, to cover the overages and expenditures, to cover the replacements if we go to replacements, or if we go to try to modify and recover, recondition the signs. I'd like to see if we could use the expertise in the works or the couple sign companies in town, if we could recondition them rather than for maybe a small percentage of the price of replacing them. Basically, I'm thinking we're going to need some more money if we're working on next couple projects. And the big surprise is if we have to replace the signage, and we're still under our, still doing things that we've previously been doing. We're not taking on new jobs, we're taking on replacement work.
Well, I guess my point was I'm not sure this committee should be concerning itself with replacement work, with repair work.
Dave, I agree with you. Yes.
You know, and for two reasons basically. One is that it shifts the focus of our main duty, which is protecting our heritage buildings, and secondly, we're kind of stepping on other people's toes because we have other committees and other community organizations that are focused on you know, attracting and retaining visitors. You know, I mean, that's, I mean, we're a part of that because Brighton's history and its architecture particularly are valuable assets that do attract people, but we're not in the attracting business, if you like.
Okay,
That's my personal view.
we've got tourism and events committee that should be
Yeah,
doing that work.
yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah.
Just for my own benefit, Mr. Chairman, do we have a sense historically as to who was the project sponsor, i.e., whose budget it was that paid for the signs for the plaques to be installed?
It was a one-time fundraising committee. It was again, I think it was the Millennium, but I'm not absolutely sure.
Okay.
But it was certainly a major cross-country, like Canadian-wide thing, and a local committee was formed. The municipality certainly made a significant financial contribution, as I recall. But there were also lots of other groups like the Lions Club and so on and so forth that got involved in it. And this was the outcome. I mean, they also did a extensive fundraising within the community itself, raffle tickets and all. Any way you could raise some money, they raised money. And this was meant to be, as I understood it, these series of plaques were meant to provide access for people to the Brighton's history, basically. Sort of. Do you remember it that way?
I'm not sure how it started.
Oh, okay.
That sounds reasonable though to
Yeah,
me.
yeah,
I mean, at the time,
yeah.
I remember being on a committee. I don't recall
No.
that the plaques were part of that committee, but it was only in the downtown anyway, so.
Yeah.
that's beside
No,
the point.
it was a big committee because it
But
involved almost all of the volunteer organizations, and you know, Lions
Yeah.
Club and Rotary. But
Funny that we don't have a history of that.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It is. But look, we're having to sit down with the Archives Committee. So that's a step forward. We can discuss this more broadly. That means we have more input into the situation from basically slightly different points of view. And maybe something will come out of that in terms of moving this that whole area forward. I mean, you know, I mean, it really should be looked at in the context of Brighton's tourism program, basically, of attracting people.
Exactly. They
And-
have walking tours
Yeah,
and this sort of thing.
yeah,
that,
yeah. So maybe what's really required is a sort of annual meeting involving our committee, digital archives, you know, and the DBIA, and anything involved in tourism, getting heads together and seeing what we want to do each year, you know. But I don't think we, this is just my opinion, but I don't think we as a committee should be in a leadership role in this. I think it should be more over towards the marketing aspect of Brighton as a destination.
Sure, just a side note, in Prince Edward County, the Heritage Committee does do all the plaques. Yeah, that was my experience. It would have been useful with Peter Lockyer and Liz on the line. Maybe prompt them with that question, but yeah, we were in the business of doing the plaques.
Yeah, well, there's new ones coming up all the time, you know. Yeah, well, we were. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, well, I guess it requires a conversation. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I was suggesting maybe not move on this motion so quickly,
Yeah.
but that doesn't stop Josh and I from doing more research on it and putting something into the draft budget.
Okay.
If we did have something in the draft budget, I don't know what those numbers would look like in terms of refurbishment or replacement of the existing plaques that are out there. If committee members have an inkling of a number, then that would be helpful for staff. But otherwise, we'll muddle through.
Well, if you just look at the budget for the, or look at the invoice for the plaque we have, that's yet to be installed. If you look at that, it'd be a guiding number. I would imagine it's in the $1,500 range. Because the previous ones were like, and I'm going back like 2, 3, 4 years maybe. So, you know, they may be $2,000 now, but I mean, in the overall scheme of things.
And how many total? We have 7?
I'm sorry?
And how many in total would we have?
I just can't tell you that off the top of my head.
I'm thinking somewhere, I thought it was 13 was the number.
Okay.
But half of them
Are good
are
condition.
probably newer within the past 5 years.
Just going to add to,
I believe I've got a list of them, Paul, and I'll get it to you. Sorry, who did I?
that was me. Yeah, I was just going to add to, I was in touch with the company that has done at least the most recent plaques with us. They've requested photographs of the disrepair of the plaques. So A member of the planning team is actually going to be going out this week, I believe, to take photographs, and we're going to send them off. So we should be able to get some rough idea of cost to either fix or replace, depending on the severity of the damage. But again, I'm in agreement with you that the focus of this budget discussion is mainly for the new plaques that you would be going to. So that $4,000 line item, I guess, would be in the thinking of like at least 2 per year. Is that sort of the?
Yeah, I think.
Steve, I recall doing in our last budget,
Yeah.
and the one previous to that, yeah, we were budgeting for 2 per year.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's right. And you said it was 4,000.
Yeah, the line item says 4,000.
So that would be 2 plaques. I think.
Interestingly, it calls it as miscellaneous expense, which is interesting. I don't know why it's not just called heritage plaques, but I didn't write it, so.
Oh, yeah, I didn't write it either, but we are taking Lindsay's charade budget out of the miscellaneous, so it's luckily forming another function there. Although I don't think it was intended at the time of the draft.
Yeah. So my own recommendation anyway, from clerk's office side of things, would be to still keep this budget the same, and any additional projects which we don't really know to budget for value wise anyway at this time, maybe we'll have to find where that is going to come out of at the time, either planning, clerks, like wherever we need to, basically. That would be my recommendation, but it's obviously the committee's choice. So this is, I put this in as a reference point for 2022. So this is last year's, and the directive both last year and this year from council, as I understand it right now, is to maintain 0% increases just because of the COVID situation. So that was also the reasoning behind that recommendation, but.
Well, we can, as Tom's described, staff can follow up during the budget process with the treasurer and other departments.
Yeah.
Okay. So the committee recommend the council maintain the 2021 Heritage Advisory Committee budget with a 0% increase. Did we already vote on that? Yeah. But then we, okay, so we passed it, but then discussed it and passed it again. How are you doing, Ron? He is, yeah. He looks like he's looking down on us and making sure we're keeping in line here. Okay, previous agenda item. Tracking, goodness me, we're back in plaques. I'm sorry? Oh. Did I? Oh, yeah. Oh, yes. As I recall, Nancy, you and I discussed having a plaque for Smithfield, right? So you sent me some information, which I couldn't read because it, it's just a, what do we call it? Just a dislocation between your computer and my computer or whatever. But anyway, I need to get that information. If you can, I don't know how you can do it, but if you could print it off and I don't know. Anyway. Okay. Okay. All right. Okay. Okay. So what am I saying here? Yes, so that we should leave an action
Sorry, 141 Main Street was next, 7-3.
7-3.
You brought it up at the beginning.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that was 7-3. I wrote down plaque for Smithfield. So
Oh.
what Nancy and I have just agreed is we got to get together and come up with something for the committee.
Oh,
Now, what's this you refer to? Oh, okay, sorry. Oh, okay, that's right, sorry. That will then be 7.4, right? So I've noticed that property on Main Street has changed hands, like there's a sold sign on it. Would it be possible to get the contact information for the owner? Or
The one, just to answer to the chair, one, I don't think that we would quite have it yet,
no,
perhaps, but two, once we do have it, we are bound by personal information rules from
Oh, okay.
MPAC and whatnot. So I
Okay.
don't know that it would be eligible. I can confer further with the clerk on that. If there's exceptions for committee business or not as part of the municipal
Okay.
business, but I know MPAC's getting increasingly sensitive about names and addresses, so
Okay.
we can
well,
circle back on that.
Yeah, yeah.
Paul, if I could just add, through you, Mr. Chair, I believe the lawyer for that purchaser has contacted us as part of a general due diligence for buying that property. So we may be able to do it that way if, depending on what the clerk says about privacy, there may be another way to get the information.
Well, we can always resort to the normal way of doing it. We'll knock on the door. Say you've got a beautiful little property. How about listing it? It is a lovely little Victoria. Oh, maybe I've told you the wrong one. Anyway, it's the corner of Main and I can't remember. It's that funny little street that just. Yeah. Victoria. I think. Huh? No, it's Vic. Can't get what you're saying. No, it's Victoria. I'm pretty sure because I remember thinking that's a nice little Victoria, and then it's on Victoria Street. Well, actually, it's on Main Street. Anyway, I digress. Sorry. Previous agenda item tracking. Oh yeah, right. So what's happening with Richardson Street plaque? Do we know?
Did you get all the information from the owners? And
Got our locates done.
got the locates done from Gas and that. Then I thought you were waiting for Works to see when they could.
On that to see what.
No.
when
Now
it's been
that the
installed.
sidewalks are done, they don't have to do finish off the sidewalks. That might be. I thought that was the one delay. In that, but it's coming along. It'd be we still got a couple months before the freeze sets in. And the owners would like, when we get it up, at least a couple days when we do the presentation, we might have some extra publicity for the committee and for the site.
Yeah, what we've normally done after it's installed, then we have a sort of a little photo op. Yeah. Yeah, we should do that. We'll get
Yeah, I'll see if it's installed. Remember, we made all the arrangements. I didn't get confirmation that it was installed. So let me just get confirmation.
Okay.
Okay, once it's installed, we'll see if we can arrange for one of the politicians to unveil it. And the committee members will all come along and stand in the background. It's good publicity. Okay, we've got 8.2 online heritage property research. Not quite sure what that's doing there.
I think that was Nancy had emailed the group prior to the August meeting about online research, heritage properties. So I just brought it forward because you missed the last meeting.
Ron, I wanted to talk to you because you did a lot of research as a LACA volunteer. But this is before we had the on land, I think it's called Ontario Land. And I think you use the impact numbers. So if there's other issues there, then that'll be the end of this conversation. So, but it had to do with researching properties using that site. And so I just wondered if anyone had any experience. And Ron, you have at the registry office, as have I, but it's been years for me.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Same here.
yeah, so some refresher course might be in order, because really the writing is so small on my little iPad here to look at that site. I don't know. It seems overwhelming to me.
Well, if you could send me the site number or address, I'll have a look at it.
Would you?
Sure.
Yeah, but I would like to know how you do it too, how to maneuver it.
Well, as soon as
would have been helpful.
yeah, as soon as I debug it, I'll let you know, and we'll get together.
Okay, yeah, that'd be great. I think Susan, a previous committee member, used it quite often, and she sent it to me.
Okay.
So
Just to assist the committee in along a similar vein, we do have impact data, and the impact data has year of construction or year built of each building. I think the oldest building, according to impact data, is pre-1800. So they do track it that far back. And I've asked our mapping person, our GIS person, Geographic Information Systems person, Rafik, to map out and show all properties containing buildings based on the year of construction built. So it should be a map with a legend with 10-year bins of year of construction range at pre-World War II was the instructions I gave them. And so that should give the committee something to work with. So, and then in behind that map will be a little bit of a spreadsheet of all the addresses as well.
Okay. So when will that be available?
Well, Rafik thought he could have it done for handout today,
Oh,
but thought might be I hadn't seen it yet, so assuming it would need some polish, I said, how about taking it to next meeting?
Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent. I had mistakenly thought that line 8.2 referred to, like, can people still get on the municipal website and look up a list of protected heritage properties?
So that was the other thing I looked at too. And so all that's on there that I can tell is just the list that we originally had of listed and designated.
Oh, okay. Okay.
But there's no details. There's nothing.
No,
there's
it's just a list.
Well, it's just
So
a
you-
photocopy of the page. That's it.
Okay. Well, that's what else is necessary.
Well, is there some reason that there can't be more? A photo of the property or some, it's not really helpful if,
You can put the address into Brighton Digital Archive and that will bring up a photograph and a paragraph if there is anything.
oh,
Perhaps we need to have a meta tag from that list directly to Brighton Digital Archive, but yeah, you can put in one of the churches, Trinity St. Andrews. I put that in as Trinity St. Andrews and it brought up Trinity St. Andrews. And I put it in as, what's it, 56 Prince Edward Street, and it brought up Trinity St. Andrews also. So their index is getting better. I know they've been working on it for the past year or so.
Through the chair, I noticed that the heritage spreadsheet does have a column for the picture. There's a link in that column.
Yeah.
But it's an inactive link. So it's
It's-
lost that connection. I don't know where it was linked to. But I'm hoping that either we can find it or Robert just had the insight now that maybe we can find it at the digital archives. So maybe that's where it linked to. So thanks for that insight, Robert.
Yes.
I don't think it does actually.
No, okay.
I think the link is between the spreadsheet and you need in the same folder, you need a file of all the descriptions and pictures. I think I may have that, so I'll try and get back to you on that.
but I was wondering if we can see why a property was listed, whether it be historical or architectural purposes. So if somebody were to go on that site, they could understand.
Well, all I can say is that, yeah, I think I have a version of the list with the appropriate files that link it. But the only thing you get is a picture, and there is a brief discussion, description in there. So anyway, I'll look into that.
Yeah, it's just not very helpful
Right.
to go onto the website.
Okay.
To the chair, Dave.
Yes.
So does your information also include the attributes listing, like the full description of the merits of the designation? 'Cause I think there's a bit of missing information that way as well.
I think so. I'm not sure.
Okay.
I'll get it to you as soon as I can. Okay. Next meeting date. Regular meeting. What's the date?
So assuming you want to stick with the first Monday, it would be October 4th for the regular meeting.
and the joint BDA HAC working group meeting.
Do you guys have a preference? I guess this one is more of a, here's the date you guys want, and then I'll bring that to the other committee and confirm back with you guys. So it's more of a what day of the week would you like, and in October or that kind of thing.
What day do they normally meet?
They meet the fourth Tuesday of the month.
So it's a midweek thing anyway. So if we invited them to a, like maybe the third Monday meeting, and we keep to our date.
Yeah, I think that is the intention, to have each committee have their own regular meeting and this be a separate date. So, so in October, yeah, I think you'd be right. Maybe mid-month, like either maybe the third week would be the week of the Monday would be the 11th, and the 15th would be the Friday, or the following week is the 18th to 22nd.
Which day is the holiday? Is the 11th the Turkey Day?
Oh, is it? Okay. Doesn't show up on my calendar. I got to put my holidays in. So yeah, I guess, right. Maybe either look at the 12th. I've got another meeting on the 13th, so I wouldn't be able to attend that day.
May I complicate the calendar and the scheduling a little bit?
Yep.
On the 4th, which is what we were talking about for our next regular meeting, I'm not sure about staff availability. We have a conference that week. Kind of the annual conference for the Ontario Professional Planners Institute, and I've learned the hard way that you better get your hours of education update in, or they slap your hands. So I kind of make that a priority now.
So supposing we jump that forward a week then, so do October the 11th. Does that work for everybody?
So that's Thanksgiving Day.
That's Thanksgiving Day.
So the day, if it's that week, but not on the Monday is fine, then it's fine by probably.
Tuesday the 12th?
Tuesday the 12th.
Are you okay with that? Same day? Yeah. Then in the evening, and so I think we can squeeze it in.
We could just say the week of 18th to the 22nd, and then I can check in with them on the best day, and we'll just converse that way. But we can just, for now, maybe call it that week. Their meeting is the following week on the 26th that month. So that week, I think, is probably the ideal week.
Okay.
So what did we just do?
The week of the 18th to the 22nd October.
Okay. So which day?
I'm thinking maybe it might be good just to say, call it that week for now, and then I'll follow up with the other committee,
okay.
and I'll just get in touch with everybody to confirm the date.
Okay.
But if there's any bad days for anyone that week, let me know, and then I'll.
So just so I'm absolutely clear here. So the regular meeting for us is on the 12th, is that right?
Yeah.
Right. So, any other business? I don't think so. So call for, we move adjournment. Thank you. All in favor? Okay. Order.